I'm not a mind reader. How many times have we heard that? How many times have we thought it? How many times have we said it? My son starts school in a couple weeks. And it's gotten me thinking about transitions. You know, with August, there's a few big ones. You know, school starts for a lot of people. The seasons are changing. You know, vacations are over, and everybody's kind of like spinning up into the rest of the year, and all of that. And it had me thinking about how many of those transitions are happening, how much are we processing internally, and how little are we communicating where we're at, what we need, or where we're overwhelmed. Being the nerd that I am, I jumped down a rabbit hole. Um, on average, we have roughly 6,000 plus individual thoughts a day. And on average, we speak roughly anywhere from 13 to 16,000 words daily. Now, I know myself, and I know how quickly I think and process and move on to the next thought or the next activity or the next action or whatever I'm doing next. And not everything that I'm thinking is obviously verbalized. And so where my head goes with my son starting school and August and transitions is how much are we internally processing without communication communication anywhere or setting expectations anywhere. And let me tell you, I sucked at expressing myself and communicating things and vocalizing what I needed, as a kid and a teenager and a young adult and even an adult. And even now, I I'm much better at it, but it is still a work in progress. I am still actively working on searching through myself, finding what needs to be said that's important, and then vocalizing it, with my son, with, the people that I care about. Um, but it also got me thinking about transitions don't just happen in August. They happen all year round. People getting married, people losing jobs, people starting new jobs, divorces, deaths in the family, people being born, even down to like, a, you know, setting up new bills or finding a new grocery store. Like these are all transitory things that happen that we process, but we probably don't necessarily talk about. And there was back when I first moved in with a partner of mine years and years and years ago. Um, that is just a perfect example of exactly what I'm speaking on. And it's like this silent expectation or this dialogue that you're having with yourself, um, when you're trying to get from point A to point F, and you get there in microseconds, right? And then you go and act on it, and then you're frustrated because your partner is not on the same wavelength, and then is like is confused because they're not even at A yet. And they're so like, I see it happen often. And I wonder why it happens, and how it happens, and like what are the things that led up to you and your existence processing all of that without communicating. And it's back to like, you're doing your thing, you're thinking faster than you can communicate. And sometimes that's just easier. But the wedge that not communicating can drive between you and your partner can be significant if it's consistent, right? And it's back to the I'm not a mind reader. If you're all the way at point F and your partner's not even aware of A, how do you like, where do you even begin? And then sometimes it's just easier to continue from F all the way to Z and finish the thing by yourself. And then you feel alone in doing the thing. And it's like, okay, well, how do I bridge that gap? And it's just such an interesting juxtaposition for me to kind of really poke around about. So back to, when I moved in with my partner, my son's mom, before we even got married, like we decided we were moving in. And I was a baby. I was not good at the processing of the emotions and the communicating. And so for me, it was like, cool. Yeah, we're just going to jump right in. And then no conversations happened um, about really much of anything. It was just like she did things and then I did things, and we just kind of like forced it to be cohesive. It was like rent was due on the first. Okay, we had to make sure somebody had the money to go write the check or make the deposit to pay rent. Bills were due on whatever, so we had to make sure somebody transferred money or somebody paid that bill. But it was like, you know who does what cleaning, who does what cooking one night, who does the chore, like who vacuums. And so it was just this kind of like, I didn't know then that those conversations should have happened beforehand, so we could figure that out, so it would have caused less frustration and confusion as we were living together. And it was just this, like the light bulb went off of like, I internalized a lot, and a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety, and that builds to resentment because one, I didn't know how to healthily communicate these things, and so it just compounded for me. But it was like, how do you start that conversation? Where do you start, and what does it look like? How do you set those expectations? Because it's like, okay, dinner needed to be made, dishes needed to be done, our place needed to be clean, and it's like, okay, me now knows that those things need to be expressed, right? But me then didn't. And I was so anxious and such an overthinker. And my brain was always just on overdrive that it was so much easier to just do all of the things, because me being a context based person, it took longer for me to explain. It would have taken longer for me to explain everything that needed to be done, what my thought process was on how to be as efficient as possible to do all of those things, and then ask for help on where I needed or wanted help. And it was like, even explaining it to you here now, you, I imagine, are going, it's like, oh well, yeah, that makes total sense. And it's like, why does it happen? Like where, like, because a choice was made at some point, right? A choice was made to just go, I'm gonna do it because it's easier. And looking at those instances back in my life and trying to identify why that decision was, like, I know my reasons. Lots of therapy there on figuring out what those reasons were. but my awareness and acknowledging those things now helps me obviously in the future. But did I really have to go through those things that way to understand? For me, yes. Do other people? No. And it's weighing the benefit, or like identifying the benefit of like, okay, do I just take time to slow down to express myself, to have assistance or help with these transitions or where I'm at mentally, to have help, or just to be understood? And again, it was such a like this entire thought process even was very interesting to live through, because it all kind of got kicked off by it's like, oh, my son starts school, things are going to change. How am I internally processing those things? How do other people internally process? How do they express themselves? Like, how would I express myself in all of this, and feeling the overwhelming stress of like, okay, summer's ending. I don't see my son as much anymore. We'll get less time. Do I need help with that? What are his expectations? Right? It's like, how's he feeling with that process and that transition? Where does he need help? Does he need to talk about it? Does he want to talk about it? And it was just a fascinating thing to really kind of digest and continue digesting, as we'll have conversations about it. And I need to, really kind of like thunk about it a whole lot more before I make more notes. But yeah,